Welcome back guys to the best legendary build for 2022. I actually took my time to make something really special for this build. I just didn't want to equip the best legendary gear and go. I wanted to make something that I have never done before. I made this a full health build so that everybody who likes to play with legendary gear can enjoy this build at full health. And I achieved some stats I have never achieved with legendary gear before. This build will have 800% crit damage at 100% crit chance. We will even use armor penetration. We will have the 2 kills hours reset. We will have ISO enhance as an option, and it is all legendary and at full health. This is almost to record the impossible build. You cannot do this with legendary items normally. And on top of that, this build will actually perform outstandingly good when you do conquest battles, when you fight in the arena. You can literally stay into RS Madness forever during the whole conquest battle just by using the RS Madness cooldown perk, which lets you do 2 kills to completely reset RS Madness. Then you can just start it again and continue your battle with RS Madness. This is absolutely incredible, but it gets even better, because when you combine the RS Madness perk with the ISO enhance, whenever you execute RS Madness, you completely reset the cooldown for ISO enhance. That leaves you with absolutely no cooldown for the 2 most powerful abilities in the entire game. But now let's check out the damage values. The light attack will be around 2 million damage, the heavy attack about 3 million damage, and the charged heavy attack will top out between 9 and 10 million damage. Ring of Chaos will be up to 5.5 million damage if you attack from behind, Fury of the Bloodline around 18 million, and overpower attacks will be up to 34 million damage. Now this is getting really close to the epic build I showed you 1 week before, and imagine this is all done by just using legendary items. We have 9 million damage with the ghost arrows, 10 million damage with the devastating shot, almost 14 million damage with predator shot, and still up to 4.5 million damage with multi-shot. And of course, RS Madness deals between 12 to 15 million damage when you activate it, and around 2 million damage for the attacks, and you don't have to fear any other mercenary in the game, because you can simply use any normal assassination even at daylight just to kill them. This build is an absolute incredible example of how good legendary gear can actually be. I will actually show you 2 different versions for this build. The first build version has 213,000 warrior damage and 650,000 assassin damage. It only uses legendary items except for the bighorn bow, and the first version for this build will make use of the new Typhon's Axe, so plus 200 critical damage when you use fire attacks. In order to trigger these plus 200 critical damage, you have to activate your fire damage normally with the fire damage ability from your ability tree, and then you have to wait for 20 seconds for it to become active. If you don't own the Typhon's Mace, or if you don't want to use this mechanics, then you can check out the alternative build variant that uses 2 perfect epic swords instead for achieving the maximum damage possible. I will show you this version right after the first one. The bighorn bow is the only non-legendary item here in this build, because you have to use it in every build, simply because it deals the most damage in the entire game. It amplifies your warrior damage by a factor of 1.6 for your left melee weapon, and it also uses the 213,000 warrior damage when you shoot your arrows. On our left melee weapon we will use the Milanese sword. That is one of the very few legendary swords in the game that have damage with swords on them. It has assassin damage instead of warrior damage, but that doesn't matter because it has more DPS and it will almost deal the same damage as a perfect epic sword with warrior damage. The only thing the Milanese sword is lacking is another 50% critical damage. So if you own a perfect epic sword with warrior damage, damage with swords and critical damage, you can use that perfect epic sword instead of the Milanese sword. Both of these should be engraved with armor penetration, because armor penetration has become incredibly strong at that scale, at that damage we deal here. It is even stronger than using the 100% damage but health capped to 25%. So having armor penetration with a full health build is actually now a really viable option. Our second weapon will be the Typhon's Axe with warrior damage, 20% crit chance at full health, and 200% critical damage with fire attacks. This is an absolute incredible weapon, because even if you don't use the plus 200% critical damage with fire attacks, if you just run with normal attacks, you still get plus 20% crit chance. Normally it's not even possible to have 10% crit chance on melee weapon, and this weapon gives you 20%. That is like as powerful as 2 copycat swords, and it comes with additional incredible legendary perks on it. The only negative thing about this weapon actually is that it is an axe, and you cannot put your damage swords or damage with any other weapon type on an axe. But having plus 20% crit chance actually allows us to use damage sword on another gear piece. On the Typhon's axe you should engrave convert 50% hunter damage bonus to all damage. If you don't have the Typhon's axe, you can simply go to the alternative build and just make a build without this weapon. On the Bighorn bow we will engrave 10% crit chance, and as already explained, this is one of the best items in the game. It magically adds its 6495 DPS to your left melee weapon because it is a glitched item, and it increases your warrior damage by an insane amount. So definitely get this item. It is a Helix store item, but you can get it with your 200 free Helix credits for free. A complete legendary alternative to the Bighorn bow would be the Hades bow, but that would not even deal half the damage than the Bighorn bow. So definitely get the Bighorn bow if you can. For our gear set we will use the Nemean Lion set of course, because it is the best legendary gear set in the game, and it also has one of the best legendary bonuses in the game. It gives you 10% crit chance and 50% crit damage at full health additionally. And you can now engrave 30% damage swords on the Nemean Lion headgear, because we already have the 20% crit chance at full health on the Typhon's axe, so we can skip the 20% crit chance on our headgear and go for damage swords here to get all our damage back. And instead of the damage swords, of course you can also engrave the Become ISO Enhanced perk here on the headgear. That is the incredible thing when you have the Typhon's axe in your build, because you can skip another 20% crit chance engraving here on the headgear and use it for whatever you want, for ISO Enhanced, for damage swords, damage daggers, whatever you want, you are free to use it. On the bracers we have warrior damage, 100% critical damage, and here you can also engrave the cooldown perk for Ares Madness, which comes from the Northern Traveler set. It says it is minus 15%, but in fact it is still minus 50, so that you only have to make 2 kills to reset your Ares Madness ability. So that engraving is basically glitched. It has the same effect as the original set bonus of the Northern Traveler set. And when you combine that with the ISO Enhance, you can actually trigger the invincibility glitch. If you don't know how to do that, you should really check out the video I made about that. Whenever you activate Ares Madness, you completely reset your ISO Enhance. So you don't have to wait for another 2 minutes, you are immediately protected, and that makes you literally invincible. Another option just to mention is of course that you could also go for the flaming attacks duration increase, because that would greatly help you keeping up the plus 200% crit damage effect from the Typhon's mace. But actually going for Ares Madness stuff here is way better. On the belt we use a normal 10% crit chance, which we always do when we use a Nemean Lion set. But on the torso we use 100% all damage types but minus 100% resistances. This perk will actually give you 300% additional warrior and assassin damage if you use the hunter damage conversion. So that is an absolute mandatory engraving which you should use in every build from now on. And on the boots, of course, we use an additional 100% crit damage at full health. That gives us a total stats of 575% warrior damage. And half of that is only coming from the new 300% engraving. That is absolutely crazy. We have 90% damage swords, 100% crit chance and 825% critical damage. Of course, these 825% are only active as long as a Typhon's mace engraving is also active. The alternative build variant has 247,000 warrior damage and 740,000 assassin damage, but it also has a lot less critical damage. It uses 2 perfect epic swords with warrior damage, critical damage and damage swords on it. And on the first one we engrave the plus 100% but minus 25% damage. On the other one we will engrave armor penetration, and on the bow we will use a hunter damage conversion. On the headgear we then have to place 20% crit chance as usual. We cannot engrave damage swords, otherwise we would not be at 100% crit chance. On the bracers and on the belt we also have to go for the 10% crit chance. On the torso we would use the same 100% all damage but minus 100% resistances, and on the boots plus 100% critical damage. That will give us 675% warrior damage. 90% damage with swords, 100% crit damage, and also 675% critical damage. So this one has more base damage but less critical damage, but you also don't have to run around and activate your fire all the time. So it is a lot easier to handle and probably the more easy to make build. Both build variants can use the same abilities and masteries, with one exception that you definitely go for the 3 points on the flaming attacks for the Typhon's Mace variant. From the Hunter tree, no matter what you actually play with, you should go for 6th Sense because that slows down time and also helps you with your assassinations. Then unlock the fire and poison arrows by putting 2 points on Arrow Master. Then you could either go for multi-shot, devastating shot or predator shot. I definitely prefer to use devastating shot because it is a lot easier to use and still deals a ton of damage. But whatever you do, definitely go for Archery Master because Archery Master also refills your first adrenaline segment. So no matter if you go full warrior, you also go for 6th Sense and Archery Master every time. Then invest 1 point here on Overpower Bowstrike to unlock your Ghost Arrows. Overpower Bowstrike itself doesn't work with the Bighorn Bow, but the Ghost Arrows are actually really awesome. They pierce shields, walls, every enemy you want to. That is definitely really good against Athenians or Cultist guards. Also go for the charged heavy attack that deals 3 times the amount of damage than a normal heavy attack and it costs you no adrenaline. Then pick up the mandatory abilities here, Weapons Master for 40% additional warrior damage, 10% crit chance. Of course Gear Master for the additional armor, since we play at full health it actually gives you a bit. If you use the Typhon's Axe variant, then definitely go for 3 points on flaming attack so that you're always able to activate the additional 200% critical damage whenever you need it. And of course also go for 3 points on fire mastery to unlock the 40% additional fire damage. Of course your overpower attacks will be the strongest attacks with up to 34 million damage, but if you have the Atlantis DLC, definitely also go for the advanced RS Madness ability that will give you an absolute easy time doing all the conquest battles and everything you want in the game, and it costs you no adrenaline when you activate it. Also, if you have the Legacy DLC, go for Fury of the Bloodline. That is a really easy adrenaline refill. It gives you a total of 4 adrenaline bars whenever you use it, so that is really overpowered. Then of course the mandatory abilities, base game, Ring of Chaos, incredible for crowd control. Don't forget Second Wind to heal yourself. And here in the Assassin tree always go for Shadow Assassin for the additional assassin damage and also for the additional critical damage. So even if you go all in, warrior, whatever, also go Shadow Assassin for the crit damage. Then go for Rush Assassination, one of the best assassin abilities, and critical assassination is not needed, you will have enough assassination damage anyway, but definitely go for Stealth Master for the additional out of combat damage overnight. Of course, if you have more ability points, go for whatever additional ability you like, Hero Strike, Slowdown Time, Death Veil. This is just a basic recommendation. The basic mastery point distribution should be 12 points on hunter damage because we will also convert that damage to be warrior damage, then 12 points on crit chance, crit damage and also headshot damage. In the warrior tab we will go for 12 points on warrior damage itself, then another 8 points on fire damage, 8 points on armor penetration. If you don't have so many points you can actually skip those, but here most important 15 points on damage sword, 15 points on the crit stuff, 12 points on the damage while full health and also 12 points on health gained per adrenaline spent. That one is actually optional, so you can actually save those 12 points, and if you also save those points on armor penetration and fire damage, then you might only need 170 or 180 points to make this build. If you have more than 400 points, of course you can max out the hunter damage, you can max out the crit chance, crit damage and headshot damage. Go for a couple of points here on the hunter stuff, adrenaline, not consume special arrows and also damage with hunter abilities. Then in the warrior tab of course you will max out warrior damage, and further down we will max out fire damage and armor penetration, and also put a couple of points on damage dealt restored as health, alongside with a general increase for all our abilities. And in the assassin tab we will go for damage whenever time is slowed down, max out assassin damage, absolutely max out damage swords, max out the critical chance, critical damage, damage while full health. If you have the points, go for a couple of adrenaline increases, health gained per adrenaline spent, and also damage for leads and bosses. Even more points could be spent on cooldown duration or even a general increase for your assassin abilities. I really hope you like the new legendary build. Please don't forget to subscribe, leave me a like and see you next time.